Hey everybody, welcome to Boxing Scene Today. Not from the Pro Box TV studios. That's right, too many of us on the road. You're from the home studio of Jimmy Smith, but it doesn't matter. We still have boxing news for you. 140 pounds right now, getting real exciting. A purse bid for Subriel Matias has come through against Dalton Smith, but what does it mean for 140 pounds? Well, I got the crew to talk about it, and that's right. I got the champs, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi joining us via Zoom, and also Robert Garcia, the coach, to help us break down the tactics. Before we start, when it comes to 140 pounds, let's talk about this matchup, Dalton Smith versus Subriel Matias. You know how exciting he can be. Chris, this is one that could be a lot of fun. What you thought about the matchup itself?
Yeah, I mean, fun is the right word, Jimmy. I mean, I think I like the matchup. This fight came about after um, Subriel Matias defeated
Players last time out.
yes,
Yep.
Alberto Puello,
Yep.
and it was a very close fight, and it was kind of funny because they had Dalton Smith like just ready for that that fight announcement. Regardless, regardless of who was going to win or not. But it did seem like they were hedging for Matias to be the guy to pull it out. And he did, and it actually makes for a really exciting fight. More so, I think, even than Puello. But if you ask me, I think they should have a rematch with Puello. Although this is a much more fun fight, but I think it's more deserving because that fight was so close. But regardless, this fight, it's a good fight. Dalton Smith is the kind of guy who's coming up, hasn't really been tested yet. This is a big test. Is it a bridge too far? I guess we'll find out on fight night. But I'm not mad at this fight. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and you got two guys who are very offensive. Matias comes forward, big puncher, big knockout guy. Dalton Smith fights really good at mid range, lets those hands fly, good body puncher. So yeah, I like the fight.
Part of the problem here, though, is a $1.9 million purse bid from Fresh Productions. Of course, Subriel Matias' promotion. Paulie, last time we saw him in Puerto Rico, because that's where Fresh Productions is based, he had a bad performance against Lamont. Is going home necessarily a good thing for a guy like Subriel Matias who didn't perform last time out?
So are you saying Fresh won the first bid already at one
Fresh
point?
won the purse bid, 1.9 million. It's on
Well,
Boxing Scene Today.
I can't say that he's now all of a sudden every time he fights in Puerto Rico he's gonna have a bad performance. We don't want to say that. The guy came up in Puerto Rico.
Don't want to jinx it.
No, and he's from Puerto Rico, so I mean he learned his craft in Puerto Rico. He fought in Puerto Rico, so I wouldn't say okay it's gonna be a definitively bad situation here for him. But you could get PTSD. You thought about the last time things happened over there. I'll push back on Champ saying he wants a rematch with Puello. Puello did not give Sandor Martin a rematch. So how does he like them apples? Now he doesn't get a rematch. He can stay home and he can watch.
Paulie's got the receipts. Always, Paulie.
You don't get. He didn't give Sandor Martin a rematch when Sandor had a close fight with Puello. So now Puello doesn't get his rematch with Matias. That's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. But
Paulie, you're acting like Puello has anything to do with anything to do with who he fights. Like he can pick.
well,
He just shows up and fights.
Same with Matias, though, but I mean, same with Matias. You said Turki Al-Ashik was in the ring after Matias won that fight, saying like, "We got your next fight already." so Puello was out.
I'm not blaming the fighters. Don't get me wrong.
Puello was like,
I'm not blaming the fighters. Don't get me wrong.
Puello was like meet the parents. He was out of the circle of trust as soon as he lost that fight.
Immediately.
And who's in the circle of trust is Dalton Smith. So Dalton is gonna fight Matias. Fresh Promotions gets the win. Dalton going to Puerto Rico. Listen, I even though Matias had a bad performance in Puerto Rico last time against Lamont, I don't think it's an easy situation for Dalton Smith. Listen, Matias in Puerto Rico, you're still going to face a pro Puerto Rican crowd. Matias is going to want to make that wrong right this time in front of his home crowd. He doesn't want to go through that same thing again, especially in front of the home crowd. He wants to make them happy. He wants to become a star there as well and be a star there as well. I don't think this is an easy fight, and I rate Dalton Smith. I think he's a good fighter, but this is not an easy fight, and Matias himself is not an easy fighter to deal with that high output.
Coach Garcia, when you look at Subriel Matias, this is a guy, every now and then we give somebody the label of boogeyman. There was a time when Subriel Matias, to us, was that guy at 140 pounds. Devastating puncher, very, very aggressive. Once again, the step back against Lamont had a lot of people backing off that label. What's your thought on his skill set, and is part of it mental? He wasn't really mentally there against Lamont in Puerto Rico. What do you do with a guy like this with that much physical talent, but we don't know exactly what he's got?
Look, when you talk about Matias, there was a time where nobody wanted to face him. At least myself, I have 4 or 5 140-pounders, and that's the guy I was like, let's stay away from that guy. Let's stay away from that guy because that guy's dangerous.
Hey, give
You know,
Robert credit for
it's true.
admitting that
You gotta
as
be
a
real.
coach, he told his guys, stay away from this dude.
We
Thanks,
have
Robert.
to. You know, I know I take care of my fighters. I do the best for my fighters, and I'm always gonna be very careful with who they match up. But now all 4 or 5 want to fight him because of his last performance, maybe because of his last couple of performances. It's crazy the way boxing is, but it is what it is. I think Matias is gonna have a good performance. I don't think it's gonna be an easy fight. I think it's a very, very competitive fight. I think it's a 50-50 fight. But fighting at home, his last performance at home wasn't very good. A lot of criticism. A lot of people really, said he's not what everybody expected. But I think this time he's gonna be 100%, and he's gonna put up a good performance. I'm not saying he's gonna win. I think the fight's a very close fight. The fight's a very, very even fight, 50-50 fight. But I think the fact that he's fighting at home is gonna motivate him and get him to perform better than the last time he fought in Puerto Rico.
Well, let me know if I miss anything, Chris, because right now, as it was announced by our boss, Gary Jonas, it looks like Lamont Roach Jr. going up to fight Isaac Pitbull Cruz. We have Shakur Stevenson maybe taking on Teofimo Lopez. 140 right now, red hot, so much talent. Talk about, not just the talent level, but where a victorious Dalton Smith or Subriel Matias could be in this mix. 140 right now, looking red hot.
Yeah, you named a lot of big players in the game today, and if you look at it, they're all from 135. They're all moving up. 135 used to be the hot division. Now we see these guys are migrating up north. You're seeing the Devin Haney's at 147. You're seeing Teofimo Lopez at 140. You're talking about Shakur Stevenson, Bosley making that jump as well, and you got Lamont Roach entering the mix. He's in his third weight class in as many fights. Isaac Cruz, a former 35 pounder, is now campaigning at 140, about to fight with Roach, like you said. A win here for either guy, Matias or Dalton Smith, puts them right in the mix with really big names. And when you fight really big names, especially when you have a belt, comes with really big paydays. So both these guys are in a good position. And it's funny listening to Robert, speak about Matias. The guy goes from the boogeyman to low-hanging fruit in little less than a year. Because now all these other guys want to fight him. And I think, honestly, if I was the other champions in that weight class, if I was a Teofimo Lopez, even a Devin Haney and Gary Antoine Russell, I mean, I would go for Matias. That would be the guy I would pick over fighting each other, because he's just one-dimensional. I've been saying this for years about him. So I think that that's what the team around Dalton Smith is seeing, and that they do have a good shot to win that fight. But I agree with Robert. I think this is a 50-50 fight, really hard one to pick, and it's really going to come down to whether or not Dalton Smith is ready for the big time.
Paulie, I got a little question for you. You insult him a little bit? Because you're always talking about the puncher. And with all these great boxers, Subriel Matias might be the puncher at 140 pounds. Like, give him a little something. Paulie?
Well, I think he did it to himself. That performance against Paro really made people sort of start underestimating him. But I think he's roared back very well. I think the Puello win is key, is clutch. I think even going into the Puello fight, Puello had a couple of good wins. And all of a sudden, Matias went from the boogeyman to, we were wondering if he was even going to beat Puello. But it was a good fight. It was a competitive fight. He came through that. And I think that, he does have his flaws, but he's going to be a difficult guy to deal with regardless, because his output is high. He goes and gets you. You're going to have to be consistent for 12 rounds to beat him. And yeah, this is a very good weight class. It's shaping up to be a good weight class to further the champ Chris's point. Another couple of names I would throw in there is Puello, the recently defeated Puello. He's also still in the mix for me. He lost a competitive fight. Sander Martin, who Puello also beat competitively, should be mentioned in that mix. And of course, even Brian Barbosa, who lost to Teofimo Lopez, that's another guy who's a pretty good fighter, also at 140 pounds.
Richard
well,
Hitchens,
right?
I mean,
Arnold Barboza.
Arnold, I don't know why I'm saying Brian. Was it Brian is the UFC fighter or something? Yeah.
There are a million Barbosas in MMA. Very popular in Brazil.
Arnold Barboza, yeah, he's a good fighter too. Yeah, he underperformed against Teofimo, but with Teo, with Teo, when it's an on Teo, tough to beat him. But regardless, the point is made. 140 pounds is a good, solid weight class with a lot of good fighters, and there's a lot of potentially good matches to be made.
What I'm curious about of Coach Garcia is what we're seeing at 140 pounds now, as Chris is saying. Some guys come up from 35 who have some really slick boxing skills. Lamont Roach Jr., you know how good he is in the pocket. Of course, Shakur Stevenson, Teofimo Lopez, some guys with great offensive and defensive skills, some great pocket fighters. It's almost like you have to have a different strategy, different camp completely for each one of these guys. Is that exciting for you as a coach, as somebody seeing all the talent in this division? But it's not all the same kind of talent. They're all different.
Definitely very excited, especially when I have quite a few guys in that division. I'm looking forward to the next couple of years, because it's with so many fighters in the division. It's not 2 or 3 fights. We're talking about a couple of years of different fights, fighting each other, and win or lose. If you put up a good fight, you're still gonna get another shot. This is a division that's stacked right now, and it's just gonna be better than within the next couple of years, because so much talent, so much young fighters, so much hungry fighters that are not getting that title opportunity because of promoters, promotions, and organizations. They just work differently. It's just a mess. But the fights are there. The big fights are still there. They don't all have to be world title fights, and they don't all have to become world champions to make those big paydays, especially in a division that's stacked with so much talent. Look, there could be 10 rounders and still making a lot of money. They're still making the $1 million paydays because the fights are so good.
Now, Chris, what I'm curious about, and we haven't had a chance to ask you about it, Lamont Roach Jr. going up, take on Isaac Pitbull Cruz at 140. As you said, another guy who moved up from 135, but is an advantage or a disadvantage when he wasn't a knockout guy at 30, wasn't a knockout guy at 35? The fact that he's a smaller 140 is going to have a lot of pop. You could say, well, he never really had a lot of pop. He's always had to outbox everyone. That doesn't really fundamentally change. What do you think of Lamont Roach Jr., as you said, 3 weight classes in 3 fights?
Well, one thing about moving up in weight, lightweights are really fast. Like go to 140, the guys get a little bit slower. Yeah, they punch harder. Yeah, they're bigger. They're more physical. But when you got the boxing style, that DMV style, that East Coast style that Lamont Roach employs, you can offset a lot of that using your own balance and your own stance and slowing down the pace at times. Because you see those guys, they tend to control the pace to the point that they're where they want to be, which again makes it much more really difficult for the opponent, who's usually redlining, trying to work harder than they need to. And so I don't think Lamont's skill set is going to be that affected as much by going up in weight. We saw him at 135. I mean, he looked great. His first fight at 35 was against arguably the best 35 pounder in the world, and he looked like the bigger, stronger man and was controlling the center of the ring a lot of the fight. So I think even him moving up to 140, it's another 5 pounds in a short period of time. But he does have the skills to offset that size. Is he able to do it with the type of talent that's there? That's the question. A guy like Matias, who's not a super skilled guy, is not going to go out there and box with you. That style could be effective. A guy like Teofimo Lopez, who's going to be a sharp, athletic boxer as well as being bigger than you, much more difficult task.
What's your thought, Paul? You've been critical of Gervonta Davis and his selection of opponents. Does this remind you a little bit of 68 with Canelo, another guy you've been critical of? Guys just moved up. Went, okay, fine. I'm going to move up to 140. And now this becomes the talent-rich division. We see it a little bit from 47 to 54. What's your thought on this kind of exodus to 140?
I don't think it's an exodus because fights don't get made. Although, it was really, listen, Gervonta's not Canelo. Canelo was holding everything hostage because he had the undisputed title, and then he wasn't giving anybody a shot. So the best contenders ended up having to move to 175 because there was no belts to fight for because Canelo was just holding them all hostage. With Gervonta, I don't think it's the same thing. He only had 1 title. So it wasn't like he was able to hold anything hostage. He just didn't want to fight anybody, and that was it. He was playing in his own lane. I just think some of these guys aren't able to make weight anymore. I think, some guys are just getting bigger. They're not able to make weight, but some guys are also going up for the opportunities. There's matchups being made. You never know. Also, guys may not stay at 140 pounds. Something like Lamont, for me, doesn't have to stay at 140 pounds. For me, he's a very small 140 pounder. Even Shakur Stevenson, if this fight, this possible fight, the rumor of him fighting Teofimo Lopez at 140 pounds, even if it's
my
made.
My fingers are crossed, Paulie. I'm just, as you're talking, my fingers are crossed.
I could see Shakur going back to 135, I don't necessarily think he needs to stay at 140 pounds, and I think his body frame still makes 135 pounds. So, there's guys who are naturally 140 pounds. There's guys who may be just passing by. The lower weight classes certainly offer us a lot of good fights if the fights get made. That's been a problem in boxing is will the fights get made? The possibilities are there. We were talking about Pitbull and Lamont Roach yesterday. That's a solid fight. We'll see. Matias and Dalton Smith is also a solid fight. We'll see.
Now, Coach, what I got to ask you, you being the old guy like me, Coach Garcia, we remember a time when it was 47-35. You had to skip to certain 54 was kind of not really on anyone's radar. It's where you went on the way up to middleweight. As a coach and as a fan, how good does it feel? 54 and 40 were not marquee weight classes when I was a young man. Now it's so full of talent. It doesn't really matter where you are. It's a matter of how good the fights are. That's different than when we were coming up, Robert. What's your thought on that as a coach, man?
Well, look, now as a boxing person, as a coach, managing a few fighters and working with so many different promoters, it's a good thing, that we have so many different champions, so many. I know Paulie always talks about all the belts and the interims and all that, but all these guys are, all the guys that have the interims are making a lot of money. They're getting world title money. They're getting millions of dollars. So I'm happy with it. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the divisions. It's only sometimes there's only a 3 pound difference from one division to another, especially in the smaller weight classes. Would I, as a fan, I would have loved, from 135, you want to challenge yourself, you got to go to 147. I would have loved that. I would have loved that because you're fighting solid guys, you're fighting a lot bigger guys. Nowadays, Lamont Roach only one fight at 135. Now he's fighting 140, but he's fighting a small guy. He's fighting, Pitbull is a strong, solid guy. I'm not gonna, but he's short. He's very, I can't say easy, but he's easy to to figure out, to train for, because he only has one style. He doesn't, in the ring with the brother, he's difficult because he throws a lot of punches and he's strong and he keeps coming. But there's only one style. That's all. So Roach will prepare well. I don't see Roach staying at 140. I think Roach, after the Pitbull fight, it's a huge fight. It's a big payday. From what I hear, he's getting a lot of money. So he'll come back down to 135. I think at 135, his performance against Tank was unbelievable. Surprised the whole world. So I think at 135, he will make a lot of noise. And there's still a lot of fights at 135 that could make sense for him. And then eventually, okay, move up to 140 again. But I see him fighting at 140 with Pitbull. But then I do believe he will come back down to 135.
It might depend on the opportunities at 140 pounds. I'm wearing a black shirt, so you don't see where Chris ripped it out, talking about maybe there won't be a fight between Shakur and Teofimo Lopez. I'm not listening to you anymore, Chris. But as it makes news at 140 pounds, we'll be covering it right here. Really exciting weight class on Boxing Scene Today. Join us, find out why millions are watching. This will heal, Chris, eventually.